The morning sun cast long shadows across the sprawling grounds of Skyridge Military Academy, a place known for producing some of the finest military minds on Earth. Today, however, was different. The air buzzed with anticipation, and the cadets moved with an unusual energy. Whispers echoed through the corridors as everyone prepared for an event that would go down in history, not just for the Academy, but for humanity itself. An alien commander named Zinara, leader of the Velon species, had agreed to visit Earth. It wasn't just a casual drop-in. It was part of a rare cultural exchange program designed to foster understanding between humans and extraterrestrial beings. For weeks, rumors had swirled about what this mysterious visitor might look like, how she would behave, and whether her intentions were truly peaceful. Now those questions were about to be answered. By noon, the entire academy had gathered at the training grounds, a vast open space surrounded by tall fences topped with razor wire. Soldiers stood at attention, their uniforms crisp and spotless. Cadets lined up neatly, trying hard not to fidget despite their excitement. Even high-ranking officials from around the world had traveled to witness the historic moment. Cameras clicked incessantly, capturing every detail for news outlets eager to share the story globally. Then, without warning, the sky seemed to shimmer. A low hum filled the air, growing louder until it became almost deafening. Everyone looked up as a sleek metallic spacecraft descended silently into view. Its surface gleamed like liquid silver, reflecting sunlight in dazzling patterns. The ship hovered for a moment before touching down gently on the designated landing pad. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hiss, the hatch opened. All eyes fixed on the entrance as a figure emerged. She was tall, much taller than any human, and slender, with skin that appeared to shimmer faintly under the light. Her armor shifted colors subtly, as though alive, and her piercing blue eyes glowed softly, scanning the scene before her. This was Zinara, commander of the Velons. She moved gracefully, each step deliberate and measured. There was an aura of authority around her, one that demanded respect without needing to ask for it. Yet there was something else in her demeanor, something harder to define. Was it curiosity, disdain, or perhaps pity? Colonel Markham, the stern yet respected headmaster of the academy, stepped forward to greet her. His boots crunched against the gravel as he approached, his posture rigid and formal. "Commander Zinara," he said, extending his hand in a gesture of goodwill. "On behalf of Skyridge Military Academy and all of humanity, we welcome you." Zinara paused, tilting her head slightly as if studying him. Instead of shaking his hand, she placed one fist over her chest and bowed, a traditional Velon greeting. "Thank you, Colonel Markham," she replied in perfect English, her voice smooth and melodic but carrying an edge of detachment. "I am honored to be here." Her response sent a ripple of murmurs through the crowd. No one had expected such formality or such coldness. Colonel Markham cleared his throat, masking his discomfort. "We have arranged a full schedule of activities for your visit. You will observe our training methods, engage with our cadets, and participate in discussions about strategy and leadership. We hope this exchange will deepen mutual understanding between our peoples." Zinara nodded slowly, her glowing eyes narrowing ever so slightly. "Your efforts are appreciated," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. Without another word, she turned her attention to the assembled cadets. They stood frozen, unsure whether to salute or simply stare. Some tried to meet her gaze, only to look away quickly, overwhelmed by her presence. As Zinara began walking among them, inspecting their ranks, the tension in the air grew palpable. She stopped occasionally to examine a piece of equipment or glance at a cadet's insignia, but she offered no commentary. Her silence spoke volumes, leaving everyone wondering what she thought of them. One young cadet, Private Daniels, couldn't help but whisper to his friend beside him. "Do you think she's impressed?" he asked nervously. "I don't know," his friend muttered back. "But I think she's judging us." And judging them she was. Though Zinara didn't say much during her initial tour of the academy, her sharp eyes missed nothing. She noted the precision of the drills, the discipline of the soldiers, and the advanced technology they used. But she also noticed other things: the subtle signs of fear, the competitive glances exchanged between cadets, the way orders were followed without question. To her, these observations revealed more than any official presentation ever could. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Zinara retired to the quarters prepared for her. The room was modest by human standards, but luxurious, compared to the Spartan conditions aboard her ship. Still, she paid little attention to her surroundings. Instead, she sat cross-legged on the floor, her mind replaying the day's events. Her thoughts drifted to the colonel's words earlier that afternoon. Mutual understanding. Did these humans truly seek understanding, or were they merely curious about her people's superior technology? And why did they seem so focused on war? Every aspect of their academy revolved around combat, strategy, weapons, tactics. Even their greetings carried an undertone of aggression. Zinara sighed softly, her luminous eyes dimming slightly. Humanity was a paradox. On one hand, they were capable of incredible ingenuity and resilience. On the other, they harbored a destructive streak that baffled her. Could they learn to rise above their instincts? Or were they destined to remain trapped in cycles of conflict? Unbeknownst to the humans, Zinara's visit wasn't just about diplomacy. Her people had been monitoring Earth for decades, watching as humanity teetered on the brink of self-destruction. This trip was a test, a chance to see if Earth's inhabitants were ready to join the galactic community, or if they posed too great a risk to themselves and others. As she meditated on these thoughts, Zinara resolved to push the cadets further. She would observe them closely, challenge their assumptions, and force them to confront uncomfortable truths. Only then could she decide whether humanity deserved a place among the stars, or if they should remain confined to their fragile planet. Little did anyone at Skyridge Military Academy realize, but this visit would change everything. By the time Zinara departed, no one would look at themselves or their species the same way again. The next morning dawned bright and clear, the crisp autumn air carrying a sense of anticipation across Skyridge Military Academy. Commander Zinara had spent the previous night observing Earth's customs, analyzing human behavior, and preparing herself for what lay ahead. Today marked the beginning of her formal engagement with the cadets, a series of lessons, drills, and discussions designed to showcase humanity's military prowess. But Zinara wasn't here just to observe, she was here to challenge. At precisely 0800 hours, the Academy's main training hall buzzed with activity. Cadets filed in, their boots clicking against the polished floor as they took their assigned seats. The room was large, filled with rows of desks facing a massive screen displaying tactical maps and diagrams. Instructors stood at attention near the front while Colonel Markham introduced the day's agenda. "Cadets," he began, his voice booming through the microphone. "Today, we welcome Commander Zinara to our advanced strategy class. She will observe your performance and provide insights from her own experience leading the Velon forces." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some cadets exchanged excited glances, eager to impress their extraterrestrial guest, while others shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Zinara, seated quietly at the back of the room, remained still, her glowing blue eyes scanning the faces before her. Her presence was magnetic, impossible to ignore, and it unnerved even the most confident among them. The first part of the session focused on battle simulations. A holographic map appeared on the screen, showing a fictional battlefield littered with enemy positions, supply lines, and terrain obstacles. Each cadet was tasked with devising a plan to neutralize the opposing force using limited resources. As the exercise unfolded, the cadets leaned forward, pencils scratching furiously against paper as they plotted their strategies. Zinara watched intently, her expression unreadable. When Colonel Markham called on Cadet Ramirez to present his solution, she listened carefully. Ramirez confidently outlined a bold attack plan involving airstrikes followed by ground assaults. His peers nodded approvingly, impressed by his creativity and decisiveness. When he finished, Zinara raised a single finger. a gesture that silenced the entire room. All eyes turned to her as she rose from her seat and approached the podium. For a moment she said nothing, simply studying the holographic map. Then in her calm yet commanding voice she asked, "Why do you assume destruction is the only path to victory?" The question hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. Ramirez blinked, caught off guard. "Ma'am?" he stammered. I thought the objective was to eliminate the enemy." "And what happens when you destroy them?" Sinara countered, tilting her head slightly. "Do you rebuild? Do you repair the damage caused? Or do you leave behind ruins where life once thrived?" Her words struck a nerve. Several cadets shifted uneasily in their seats, unsure how to respond. Colonel Markham stepped in, attempting to ease the tension. "Commander, war often requires difficult choices. Sometimes eliminating threats is necessary to protect innocent lives." Sinara turned to him, her glowing eyes narrowing ever so slightly. "Is that truly always the case?" she asked. "In my culture, we believe strength lies not in domination, but in resolution. Why do you not seek alternative solutions before resorting to violence?" The room fell silent. No one dared speak. Even Colonel Markham hesitated, his usual composure faltering under the weight of her critique. Sinara didn't wait for a reply. Instead, she returned to her seat, leaving the cadets to grapple with her unsettling questions. Later that afternoon, Sinara joined the cadets during physical training exercises. The sun blazed overhead as groups of soldiers ran obstacle courses, scaled walls, and practiced hand-to-hand combat techniques. Sweat dripped from their brows, and shouts of encouragement echoed across the field. Sinara walked among them, her movements fluid and unhurried, observing every detail. She stopped near a group practicing teamwork drills. The task seemed simple enough: carry a heavy log over a series of hurdles without dropping it. But tensions quickly flared as disagreements arose about who should lead and how best to distribute the load. One cadet, frustrated by the lack of progress, snapped at his teammates. "Just listen to me," he barked. "We're wasting time." Sinara intervened, stepping closer until she towered over the arguing group. They froze, startled by her sudden presence. "Why are you fighting amongst yourselves?" she asked, her tone deceptively gentle. "Is this how you achieve unity?" The cadet who had shouted earlier flushed red. "It's hard to work together when no one agrees," he muttered. Defensively, "Perhaps," Sinara replied, crouching down to meet their eye level. "But tell me this. Does conflict strengthen or weaken your bond? If you cannot trust each other now, how can you rely on one another in battle?" Her words hit home. The cadets exchanged guilty glances, realizing the truth in her observation. Slowly they regrouped, working more cooperatively this time. Though they struggled, their determination grew stronger, fueled by a newfound understanding of teamwork. As the day drew to a close, Sinara attended a lecture on military ethics, led by Lieutenant Harper, one of the Academy's youngest instructors. Known for her unconventional teaching methods, Harper emphasized empathy and moral responsibility, alongside traditional tactics. Sinara found her approach intriguing and decided to stay for the full session. Harper began by posing a hypothetical scenario to the class. "Imagine you're leading a mission to capture a key enemy stronghold," she said. "During reconnaissance, you discover civilians trapped inside. What do you do?" The cadets eagerly raised their hands, offering various responses. Some suggested evacuating the civilians first, while others argued for proceeding with the attack. Regardless, Sinara listened silently, noting the diversity of opinions. Finally, Harper turned to Sinara. "Commander, what would you do in this situation?" she asked, inviting her to share her perspective. Sinara stood slowly, drawing all eyes to her. "In my culture," she began, "we value life above all else. If there are innocents involved, we find another way, a safer way, to achieve our goal. Sacrificing others, even unintentionally, weakens us. It makes us no better than those we oppose." Her answer sent a ripple of contemplation through the room. Many cadets scribbled notes, their expressions thoughtful. Others stared at her, clearly struggling to reconcile her ideals with their own training. After the lecture, Harper approached Zinara privately. "Your views are refreshing," she admitted with a small smile. "Most of us have been taught that sacrifice is sometimes unavoidable." Zinara regarded her with a faint tilt of her head. "Sacrifice is inevitable," she agreed, "but it should never be taken lightly. Tell me, Lieutenant Harper, do you believe humanity is ready to embrace such principles?" Harper hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I think we're capable of it," she said. "But change takes time. We're still learning." Zinara's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile, an expression so subtle it might have been imagined. "Then perhaps there is hope for your species yet." That evening, as the Academy settled into quiet reflection, Zinara retreated to her quarters once more. She sat cross-legged on the floor, replaying the day's events in her mind. The cadets' enthusiasm had surprised her, as had their willingness to adapt when challenged. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental was missing, a deeper understanding of what it meant to wield power responsibly. Still, there were moments of promise. The way some cadets embraced teamwork after her intervention. The earnestness in Lieutenant Harper's voice when discussing humanity's potential. These glimpses gave her pause, making her wonder if perhaps humanity wasn't beyond redemption after all. Tomorrow she would push them further. She would test not just their skills but their character, their ability to rise above instinct and choose compassion over conquest. Only then could she determine whether humanity deserved a place among the stars, or if they were destined to remain confined to their fragile planet. For now, though, Zinara allowed herself a rare moment of rest. Outside her window, the Earth rotated silently beneath a canopy of stars. Somewhere out there, her people awaited her report. And somewhere here, humanity teetered on the edge of greatness or ruin. The third day of Commander Zinara's visit to Skyridge Military Academy dawned with an unusual tension in the air. The cadets had spent the previous nights discussing her critiques and debating her philosophies late into the evening. Some admired her wisdom, while others dismissed her ideas as naive or impractical. But one thing was certain: no one could deny that she was testing them. And today, they would face their biggest challenge yet. Colonel Markham gathered everyone, early in the morning for a briefing. "Cadets," he announced, his voice firm but tinged with excitement, "Commander Zinara has proposed a joint exercise, a simulated battle scenario designed to evaluate your leadership, adaptability, and teamwork. This will be unlike any drill you've experienced before." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Simulated battles were a staple at the Academy, but this one came with a twist. Each team would have access to limited resources, forcing them to make difficult decisions about how best to utilize what little they had. To add pressure, Zinara herself would act as both observer and arbiter, grading their performance based on criteria no one fully understood. "This is our chance to prove ourselves," whispered Private Daniels to his friend beside him. "We can't let her think we're weak." His friend nodded nervously. "Yeah, but what if she's looking for something we don't even know how to give?" Their uncertainty mirrored the feelings of many cadets. They were used to clear objectives: capture the enemy, defend the base, secure the territory. But Zinara's presence suggested this exercise was about more than just winning. It was about proving humanity's potential, or exposing its flaws. The simulation began shortly after sunrise. The cadets were divided into two teams, each assigned a commander responsible for making strategic decisions. Team Alpha, led by Cadet Ramirez, took up position in a dense wooded area, while Team Bravo, commanded by Lieutenant Harper, fortified themselves near a rocky ridge. Both sides had been given identical supplies: limited ammunition, basic medical kits, and outdated communication devices meant to simulate real-world constraints. Zinara watched from a raised platform overlooking the battlefield, her glowing eyes scanning every movement below. She carried a small tablet-like device in her hand, presumably recording data or analyzing the cadets' actions. Her expression remained neutral, betraying nothing of her thoughts. At first, the exercise unfolded, predictably. Team Alpha launched a series of probing attacks attempting to draw out Bravo's defenses. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Harper ordered her team to hold their ground, conserving resources until they could identify a weak point in Alpha's strategy. The cadets moved with precision, executing maneuvers drilled into them over months of training. But then things started to go wrong. Team Alpha's initial assaults left them dangerously low on ammunition. When Ramirez realized his mistake, he grew frustrated, snapping orders at his subordinates. "Push harder," he shouted, his voice echoing across the field. "We need to break through now." His aggression backfired. Instead of advancing, his team faltered, losing cohesion under the strain. Arguments broke out among the soldiers, and several key positions were abandoned as chaos spread. On the other side, Lieutenant Harper noticed the growing disarray within Alpha's ranks. Sensing an opportunity, she prepared a counterattack, but not without hesitation. Turning to her second-in-command, she asked, "Do we strike now, or do we wait and see if they collapse on their own?" Her hesitation cost them dearly. By the time Bravo launched their assault, Alpha had regrouped enough to mount a desperate defense. What followed was a chaotic skirmish, with both sides suffering heavy losses in terms of simulated casualties. Morale plummeted as exhaustion set in, and mistakes piled up. Throughout it all, Zenara observed silently. She noted how fear drove some cadets to reckless behavior, while others froze under pressure. She saw the cracks forming in leadership structures, and the toll the exercise took on interpersonal relationships. Most importantly, she noted the emotional weight of failure and success on those involved. When the simulation ended hours later, the results were inconclusive. Neither team had achieved a decisive victory, and both suffered significant setbacks. The cadets trudged back to the assembly area, covered in dirt and sweat, their faces etched with frustration and disappointment. Zenara stepped forward, her towering frame commanding attention despite her calm demeanor. For a moment she said nothing, simply letting the silence settle over the group. Then, in her melodic yet piercing voice, she spoke. "You fought well," she began, surprising everyone. "Your skills and tactics are impressive. Yet I must ask, why did so many of you prioritize winning over cooperation? Why did fear of failure drive you to act recklessly?" Her questions hung heavy in the air, forcing the cadets to confront uncomfortable truths. Ramirez, still seething from his team's collapse, clenched his fists. "Isn't war about winning?" he shot back. "If we don't win, we lose everything." Zainara tilted her head slightly, studying him with her luminous blue eyes. "And what did you gain by focusing solely on victory?" she countered. "Your team fractured, trust eroded, lives, simulated though they may be, were lost unnecessarily. Was it worth it?" Ramirez opened his mouth to argue, but found no words. Around him, other cadets shifted uncomfortably, reflecting on their own choices during the exercise. Lieutenant Harper stepped forward, breaking the uneasy silence. "Commander," she said respectfully, "we understand your point. But, in war, hesitation can be just as costly as recklessness. How do you balance caution with decisiveness?" Zainara considered her question carefully before responding. "Balance comes from understanding," she explained. "You must weigh the consequences of your actions, not just for yourselves but for others. In my culture, strength is measured, not by conquest but by unity. Tell me, humans, are you stronger together or apart?" Her words resonated deeply, sparking a wave of introspection among the cadets. Some exchanged guilty glances, remembering moments when they had prioritized personal glory over teamwork. Others nodded thoughtfully, recognizing the value of collaboration in achieving shared goals. Later that evening, Zainara joined Colonel Markham and a select group of instructors for dinner. The meal was simple: roasted vegetables, grilled meat, and fresh bread. But the conversation was anything but. Zainara listened intently as the colonel discussed Earth's history of warfare, highlighting humanity's resilience in the face of adversity. "War has shaped us," Markham admitted. "It has forced us to innovate, to adapt, to survive. Without it, we might never have advanced as far as we have. Zainara nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "Survival is admirable," she replied. "But at what cost? Your species has achieved great things, yet much of your progress has come at the expense of others. Is that truly the legacy you wish to leave behind?" Her question struck a chord. Even Markham, usually so steadfast in his beliefs, found himself pausing to consider her perspective. Before he could respond, Lieutenant Harper chimed in. "Humanity isn't perfect," she acknowledged. "We make mistakes, sometimes terrible ones. But we also learn from them. Look at how far we've come, from tribal conflicts to global cooperation. We're trying to build a better future." Zainara's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. "Trying is not enough," she said softly. "Action defines intent. Show me that your actions align with your aspirations, and perhaps I will believe in your promise." Her words lingered long after the meal ended, leaving everyone with a renewed sense of purpose. For the cadets, the day's events had been humbling but transformative. They had faced their weaknesses head-on, challenged by an outsider who refused to accept excuses or half-measures. As Zainara retired to her quarters that night, she reflected on what she had seen. Humanity was flawed, yes, but it was also capable of growth. Whether they chose to embrace that potential remained to be seen. But one thing was clear: these humans were beginning to understand the true meaning of strength, and that, Zainara realized, was progress. The fourth day of Commander Zainara's visit to Skyridge Military Academy brought a shift in tone. After the intense challenges of the previous days, there was a subtle change in the atmosphere. The cadets seemed quieter, more reflective, as if they were processing everything Zainara had said and done so far. Even Colonel Markham appeared less rigid, his usual stern demeanor softened by curiosity about what this alien commander might reveal next. That evening, Zainara requested a private meeting with Lieutenant Harper, the young instructor whose unconventional methods had caught her attention earlier. Harper, surprised but honored, agreed without hesitation. They met in a small conference room near the Academy library, a quiet space filled with books, maps, and artifacts from Earth's military history. It was an odd setting for such a meeting, but somehow fitting. As Zainara entered, she glanced around curiously, her glowing eyes scanning the shelves lined with human knowledge. "Lieutenant Harper," Zainara began, taking a seat across from her, "I wish to understand your species better. Tell me about your world, your history, your art, your philosophy." Harper hesitated for a moment, unsure where to begin. Then, with a deep breath, she launched into a story that spanned centuries. She spoke of humanity's earliest days, tribes fighting over resources, building shelters, creating tools. She described how civilizations rose and fell, leaving behind ruins that still inspired awe today. She told Zainara about the Renaissance, when humans rediscovered beauty and creativity after centuries of darkness, and about the Industrial Revolution, which transformed societies almost overnight. But it wasn't just the grand events that captivated Zainara. Harper also shared stories of resilience, the way people rebuilt cities after devastating wars, created masterpieces amidst poverty, and found hope even in the bleakest moments. She talked about acts of kindness during disasters, communities coming together to help one another, and individuals risking their lives for strangers. As Harper spoke, Zainara listened intently, her expression softening in ways no one had seen before. Her glowing eyes dimmed slightly, not out of boredom but perhaps admiration. For the first time since arriving on Earth, she seemed genuinely moved. "Your species baffles me," Zainara admitted when Harper paused to take a sip of water. "You are capable of such destruction, yet you also create wonders beyond measure. How do you reconcile these contradictions within yourselves?" Harper smiled faintly, setting down her glass. "That's what makes us human," she replied. "We're flawed, yes, but we strive to be better. Sometimes we succeed and sometimes we fail, but we never stop trying." Zainara nodded slowly, her thoughts drifting. She had come to Earth expecting to judge humanity, to determine whether They posed a threat to her people or could coexist peacefully. But now she realized the truth was far more complex. These humans weren't just warriors or inventors. They were dreamers, creators, survivors. Their potential was vast, but so were their risks. The following morning, Zinara decided to explore the academy further on her own. Without fanfare or escorts, she wandered through its halls, observing cadets going about their daily routines. In one classroom, she watched as a group of students debated ethical dilemmas posed by artificial intelligence. In another, she saw engineers tinkering with prototypes of drones designed to deliver supplies in disaster zones. Everywhere she looked, she saw evidence of humanity's ingenuity and its relentless drive to improve. At one point, she stumbled upon a small art studio tucked away in a corner of the campus. Inside, a young cadet sat hunched over a canvas, painting furiously. His uniform was smudged with paint and his hands trembled slightly as he worked. Curious, Zinara stepped closer, studying the unfinished piece. It depicted a battlefield, not one of war machines and soldiers, but of broken landscapes and shattered dreams. Yet amidst the chaos, there was a single tree sprouting new leaves, symbolizing hope and renewal. "What does this mean?" Zinara asked, startling the cadet. He looked up, startled but not frightened. "It's a reminder," he stammered. "Even after everything falls apart, life finds a way to grow again." Zinara studied him for a moment, then nodded approvingly. "A powerful message," she said softly. "Thank you for sharing it." Later that afternoon, Zinara attended a cultural exchange event organized by the academy. Cadets performed traditional dances, played music, and showcased crafts from different parts of the world. The room buzzed with laughter and applause as people celebrated the diversity of human culture. Zinara moved among them, sampling food, admiring artwork, and listening to stories shared by eager participants. One cadet approached her nervously, holding out a handmade bracelet woven from colorful threads. "This is for you," he said shyly. "It's a symbol of friendship." Zinara accepted the gift, examining it carefully. The threads intertwined in intricate patterns, each color representing something unique. "What do these colors mean?" she asked. "The red stands for courage," the cadet explained. "Blue for loyalty, green for growth, and yellow for hope. Together they represent unity." Her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. "A beautiful sentiment," she murmured, slipping the bracelet onto her wrist. "Thank you." By evening, word had spread about Zinara's interactions throughout the day. The cadets whispered excitedly about how she had engaged with them, not as a distant observer, but as someone genuinely interested in learning. Colonel Markham, too, noticed the change. When he joined Zinara for dinner, he couldn't help but comment on it. "You seem different tonight," he said cautiously. "More at ease." Zinara tilted her head slightly, considering his words. "Perhaps I am," she admitted. "Your kind continues to surprise me, Colonel. You are not what I expected." Markham chuckled, dryly. "Neither good nor bad, I assume." "Both," Zinara replied simply. "You possess incredible potential, but also great danger. Whether you choose to rise above your instincts will determine your future." Her honesty struck a nerve. Markham leaned back in his chair, studying her thoughtfully. "And what of your people?" he asked. "Are the Valons so perfect?" Zinara's expression darkened slightly. "No species is perfect," she said. "We have our own struggles, our own flaws. But we have learned to prioritize unity over division, resolution over conflict. Perhaps that is why we endure." Their conversation continued late into the night, covering topics ranging from politics to philosophy. By the end, both had gained a deeper understanding of the other's perspective. For Zinara, it reinforced her belief that humanity was worth investing in, if only they could overcome their destructive tendencies. As Zinara prepared for bed that night, she reflected on all she had seen and learned. Humanity was a paradox, a fragile yet resilient species capable of both immense compassion and devastating harm. They reminded her of a star, brilliant and radiant, yet unstable and prone to collapse under pressure. But stars also gave birth to new worlds. And perhaps, Zainara thought, humanity could give birth to something greater than itself, if given the chance. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Zainara felt a flicker of optimism. These humans weren't ready. Not yet. But they were trying, and sometimes that was enough. The final day of Commander Zainara's visit to Skyridge Military Academy arrived with a mixture of anticipation and melancholy. The cadets, instructors, and even Colonel Markham knew this was their last chance to make an impression on the enigmatic, alien leader. For days they had been tested, questioned, and challenged in ways none of them could have anticipated. Now, as the sun rose over the academy grounds, everyone gathered for Zainara's farewell address, a moment that would define not just the end of her visit, but perhaps humanity's place among the stars. Zainara stood at the center of the training field, surrounded by hundreds of cadets and officials. Her shimmering armor caught the morning light, making her appear almost otherworldly. Yet there was something different about her today. The aloofness she had displayed upon arrival was gone, replaced by a quiet intensity that commanded attention without demanding it. She looked out at the sea of faces before her, her glowing blue eyes scanning each row of soldiers standing at attention. "I came here expecting to judge you," Zainara began, her melodic voice carrying across the silent crowd. "I sought to determine whether your kind posed a threat to my people, or if you were worthy of joining the galactic community. Instead, I leave with questions and admiration." A murmur rippled through the assembly. No one had expected such candor from her. Cadets exchanged glances, unsure how to process her words. Was she complimenting them, criticizing them, or both? "You are a paradox," Zainara continued, pacing slowly as she spoke. "A species capable of immense destruction, yet equally capable of breathtaking creation. You fight fiercely, yet you dream boldly. You are flawed, yet you strive for perfection. In many ways you remind me of my own people, before we learned to rise above our instincts." Her gaze lingered on Lieutenant Harper, who stood near the front of the group. Harper straightened slightly, meeting Zainara's eyes with quiet resolve. It was clear that Zainara respected her, not because of her rank or skills, but because of her belief in humanity's potential. "Your strength lies not in your weapons or your strategies," Zainara said, turning back to address the entire crowd. "It lies in your ability to adapt, to learn, to grow. You falter, yes, but you also rise again. And when you choose unity over division, compassion over cruelty, you shine brighter than any star in the galaxy." Her words struck a chord deep within the hearts of those listening. Even the most hardened soldiers felt a lump in their throats, moved by the sincerity in her tone. But Zainara wasn't finished. "However," she added, her voice growing firmer, "you must decide what kind of future you want to build. Will you continue down a path of conflict and conquest, or will you embrace the values of cooperation and understanding? The choice is yours, and the consequences will shape not only your destiny, but the fate of countless others." As she spoke, Zainara reached into a pouch on her belt and retrieved a small crystalline device etched with intricate symbols. Holding it up for all to see, she explained its significance. "This is a token of remembrance," she said. "Within it lies knowledge, a record of our encounter and a reminder of the choices ahead. Guard it well, for it represents hope and responsibility." Colonel Markham stepped forward to accept the gift, his hands trembling slightly as he took the delicate object. "On behalf of Skyridge Military Academy and all of humanity, thank you, Commander Zainara," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We will honor your trust and strive to live up to your expectations." Zainara nodded approvingly, then turned her attention back to the cadets. "To you, young warriors," she said, her voice softening, "I offer this advice. Never stop questioning. Question your leaders, your traditions, and yourselves. Only through reflection can you grow stronger, not just as individuals, but as a species." With that, she bowed deeply, performing the traditional Velon gesture of respect. The cadets, following her lead, placed their fists over their chests and bowed in return. It was a moment of mutual acknowledgement, bridging the gap between two vastly different worlds. As Zinara made her way toward her ship, the crowd parted to let her pass. Some cadets saluted, others simply watched in awe as she walked by. Private. Daniels, who had once whispered nervously about impressing her, now stood silently, his expression filled with determination. He understood now that true strength wasn't about proving oneself, it was about becoming better. When Zinara reached the landing pad, she paused briefly to glance back at the academy. Her glowing eyes swept over the assembled crowd one last time, lingering on the faces of the cadets she had come to admire. Then, without another word, she ascended the ramp into her spacecraft. The hum of engines filled the air as the sleek vessel lifted off the ground, rising gracefully into the sky. Everyone shielded their eyes against the bright light reflecting off its metallic surface until it disappeared beyond the clouds. Silence followed, broken only by the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. In the days that followed, life at Skyridge Military Academy returned to normal, or at least as normal as it could be after such an extraordinary event. Conversations buzzed with reflections on Zinara's visit. Cadets debated her critiques, analyzed her philosophies, and shared stories of moments that had changed their perspectives. Even Colonel Markham found himself rethinking long-held beliefs about leadership and warfare. Lieutenant Harper, holding the crystalline device entrusted to her by Zinara, spent hours studying it in private. Though its symbols remained indecipherable, she felt a profound connection to the message it represented. It was a call to action, a challenge to humanity to prove itself worthy of the stars. For the cadets, Zinara's departure marked the beginning of a new chapter. They trained harder, thought deeper, and worked together more effectively than ever before. Arguments still arose, mistakes were still made, but there was a newfound sense of purpose driving them forward. They remembered her question, "Are you stronger together or apart?" And they chose to answer it with unity. Months later, news spread that Earth had received a message from the Valons. It was brief but meaningful, an invitation to join the Galactic Council, a coalition of advanced civilizations working together for peace and progress. Humanity's response was unanimous. They accepted. As representatives prepared to travel to the Council's headquarters, the lessons learned during Zinara's visit guided their preparations. They focused not on showcasing their power, but on demonstrating their commitment to growth, understanding, and cooperation. The crystalline device accompanied them, serving as a symbol of humanity's promise to rise above its flaws. And so, Commander Zinara's visit became more than just a memory, it became a turning point. Her words echoed in the minds of everyone who had met her, reminding them of the choices ahead. Humanity had been given a chance to step onto the galactic stage, to prove that they were more than their conflicts and fears. Whether they would succeed remained to be seen. But one thing was certain, Zinara had planted a seed of hope and it was already beginning to grow.